Okay, let's unpack this. You've probably heard the buzz, right? Maybe you've even taken the plunge, bought some crypto.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
But then you hit this wall of jargon, wallet, keys, seed phrase, blockchain, gas fees, different networks. Suddenly, that exciting new world feels like it needs its own, I don't know, Rosetta Stone. It's just overwhelming.
It absolutely is. I mean, the promise of decentralization, these new digital assets, it's huge. But the technical language,
Yeah.
especially around something as basic as how you actually hold it, that's a major hurdle for people.
And that's precisely the mission of this deep dive,
Yeah.
tailored specifically for you. We've pulled together insights from Money, Investopedia, Crypto Casey on YouTube, material from Rock Wallet, and material Bitcoin, and even some really interesting discussions on Reddit.
A good mix.
Yeah, our goal is simple. Cut through that complexity, strip away the confusion. We want to give you that aha moment.
Right.
So you genuinely understand crypto wallets, what they are, how they work, the different kinds, and, this is critical, how to use them safely.
It's all about giving you the knowledge, really, so you can confidently navigate this digital asset class yourself.
Exactly. And here's where we need to start, with the core concept, because it's probably different than you think. Your crypto wallet doesn't actually hold your crypto, cash or cards in your physical wallet.
That's the big misconception.
Understanding what it does hold, that's the absolute key to everything else we'll talk about.
Yeah, the physical wallet analogy, it trips a lot of people up right at the start. A much better way to picture it, think about your online bank account or maybe your Netflix app.
Okay.
The actual money or the movie files, they aren't stored on your phone, right?
Right, no.
The app is just the tool. It's the interface that lets you access them, and they're stored on some server or database somewhere else.
Okay, so in the crypto world, what's that database? Where's the crypto actually living?
That database is the blockchain. Think of it like this massive shared online ledger. It's transparent. Anyone can look at it, basically.
Yeah.
And it's immutable. You can't really change past entries. Plus, it's decentralized.
Meaning no single company or government controls it.
Exactly. It's spread across thousands, maybe millions of computers all over the world.
Got it. Okay. So if the crypto isn't in my wallet, it's recorded on this decentralized blockchain.
Right.
How does my wallet connect me to my specific coins on that ledger? How do I prove they're mine?
Okay. That's where your digital keys come in. These are basically your unique credentials. They let you access and control your assets on the blockchain.
And there are two main types, right? The public key and the private key.
Exactly. Let's start with the public key. This is essentially your wallet address.
That long string of letters and numbers you see.
That's the one. This is what you share with others so they can send you crypto. Think of it like your email address you give out, or maybe your bank account number for receiving a deposit.
Okay, so people can send to it.
Right? They can send TO it, but they can't take anything from it with just the public key. No way.
Gotcha. Public key is for receiving, so the private key must be for sending.
Exactly. And it's the absolute flip side and way, way more critical. This is another unique string of data. Think of it as your secret password or maybe your digital signature.
Okay.
This is the key that proves you own the crypto associated with your public address. And it's what you need to actually initiate a transaction to send crypto from your wallet.
So this one you absolutely do not share.
Never. Ever. You must never share your private key with anyone, because if someone gets hold of your private key, they don't need your phone, they don't need your computer.
Should have had access.
They have complete control. They can drain your funds. And unlike a bank, where they might help you recover a lost password,
Right.
in crypto, there's no central authority to help you if your private key gets compromised. It's all on you.
Wow, okay. So the private key is everything. It's the proof, it's the ability to spend. Okay, but then there's this other term that pops up constantly, the seed phrase. How does that fit into this picture?
Yes, the seed phrase. You'll also hear it called a recovery phrase or secret recovery phrase, sometimes other names too. It's typically a list of 12 or maybe 24 random words. Your wallet software or hardware generates these for you when you set it up.
Is it just another password or something different?
Oh, it's much more powerful than just a password. Think of it as the master key.
The master key.
Yeah. From this single sequence of words, your wallet can basically regenerate all of your private keys associated with that wallet.
All of them?
All of them. And that means it can restore access to your funds on the blockchain using any compatible wallet app or device.
Whoa. So let me get this straight. If I lose my phone, or my computer dies, or even if my fancy hardware wallet breaks,
Yep.
but I still have my seed phrase written down somewhere safe, I'm okay. I can get my crypto back.
Precisely. You just download a compatible wallet app on a new phone or computer, you enter your 24 words in the correct order, and boom, it restores access.
Wow.
It finds all your associated crypto addresses and balances on the blockchain. Because remember, the funds were never on the old device anyway.
Right, they're on the blockchain.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And your seed phrase is the ultimate key to unlock access from anywhere.
That's incredibly powerful, but also kind of terrifying.
Exactly. Because the flip side is just as stark. If someone else gets your seed phrase.
They don't need my phone or anything.
Nope. They don't need your physical wallet, your device, nothing. They could just input your phrase into their own compatible wallet app wherever they are in the world.
And they can just take my funds remotely.
Instantly. They gain complete control.
Okay. So the seed phrase isn't just a backup plan. It's like the ultimate representation of ownership. Is that why you always hear that saying, not your keys, not your coins?
You've hit the nail on the head. That's exactly it. If you don't hold your private keys, or, crucially, the seed phrase that generates them, then you don't have true sovereign control over your digital assets.
Someone else does.
Someone else does. Often, that's an exchange. And when that's the case, you're essentially dependent on them to let you access your funds.
That dependency is a really key point, isn't it? Because, let's be real, most people start out buying crypto on an exchange, like Coinbase, Kraken, whatever. It's just convenient, right? It feels like opening a normal brokerage account. They seem to handle everything.
They do, and that convenience is exactly why they're such popular starting points. But here's the catch. When you leave your crypto sitting on that exchange, the exchange is the one holding the private keys for you.
So I don't actually have the keys.
Nope. You essentially have an IOU from the exchange. You have a claim on those assets, but you don't have direct control over them on the blockchain itself. And leaving significant amounts of crypto on exchanges, especially if you're holding for the long term, well, the sources we looked at really highlight some inherent risks.
Right. What are those main risks people really need to be aware of if they're leaving crypto on an exchange?
Well, the most obvious one is probably security. Exchanges are these massive, centralized repositories of crypto. That makes them huge targets for hackers.
Like giant honeypots.
Exactly. Think about it. Is it easier for a hacker to target millions of individual wallets or one big exchange holding billions? Even the most sophisticated exchanges are under constant attack.
Makes sense. They're online, they hold keys for tons of people, big target. What else?
There's also transparency risk. Some of the sources pointed out that, well, we don't always know exactly what exchanges are doing with customer funds behind the scenes.
You mean like lending them out?
Potentially, yeah. Engaging in fractional reserve practices, which means they might not actually hold one-to-one reserves of the crypto that users think they have deposited.
And that creates the risk of a bank run, basically.
Precisely. Like we saw with FTX. If too many users try to withdraw their funds at the same time, and the exchange doesn't physically have enough crypto on hand because it's been lent out or rehypothecated, well, the whole thing can collapse.
Yeah, that FTX situation really hammered home the dangers of that counterparty risk, didn't it?
It absolutely did. And then there's regulatory risk, too.
How so?
Exchanges are centralized companies. They operate in specific countries under specific laws. Governments or regulatory bodies like the SEC in the U.S., for example, can impose restrictions.
Like forcing them to stop trading certain coins.
Yeah, or freezing assets or even shutting down operations entirely, all of which can directly impact your ability to access your crypto if it's held on their platform.
Okay, so the general advice seems to be using an exchange for buying, selling, maybe active trading, that's fine. But for holding crypto, especially larger amounts or for the long term.
For holding, self-custody is strongly recommended based on these risks.
Right. Use the exchange as the bridge, the on-ramp or off-ramp between regular money and crypto, or for trading. But once you've got the crypto you plan to hold,
move it. Transfer it to a self-custodial wallet where you control the private keys, where you hold that seed phrase. That's true ownership.
Now, one of the sources, I think it was the Rock Wallet one, mentioned platforms like Uphold. They were talking about things like 100% backed reserves and even FDIC insurance on fiat, sort of positioning themselves differently. How do they fit in?
Yeah, that's interesting. It shows how the space is trying to evolve, maybe address some of those fears. Platforms like that seem to be aiming for a blend.
A blend of what?
Trying to combine some of the convenience and maybe perceived safety nets of traditional finance, like the insurance claims, although you'd need to look very closely at how that applies to digital assets versus just the cash component.
Right. That $2.05 figure seemed high for crypto.
Exactly. So they blend that with access to the new digital asset class. They kind of sit somewhere between a pure self-custodial wallet, where all the security responsibility is on you, and a traditional exchange, where you completely hand over custody. The fundamental question, though, always comes back to who ultimately holds the private keys for the actual crypto?
So if the platform holds the keys,
Then there's still some degree of counterparty risk, even if they manage it differently or offer different assurances than a standard exchange. You're still trusting a third party.
okay, got it. So we understand why self-custody is important for true ownership and mitigating certain risks. Now, if you decide to take that step, the sources talk about two main categories of wallets: hot wallets and cold wallets. What's the absolute core difference people need to grasp?
It's super simple, really. It just goes down to their connection to the internet. That's the key differentiator.
Okay, let's start with hot wallets then. What are they?
Hot wallets are basically any crypto wallet that is, or regularly is, connected to the internet.
So like apps on my phone or computer?
Exactly. Software wallets, you install things like Exodus, Trust Wallet, MetaMask, Blue Wallet are common examples. Also, web wallets that you access through your internet browser fall into this category. These could be built into exchange platforms or standalone services.
And what's the main appeal? Why use a hot wallet?
Convenience, mostly.
Hmm.
They're usually really easy to set up, often free to download, and because they're online, they're great for making frequent transactions or interacting with decentralized applications, dApps, and other Web3 stuff.
Accessible from anywhere with internet.
Right. And many have handy built-in features, like allowing you to swap one token for another directly within the wallet.
Okay, sounds convenient. What's the downside? The risk.
Well, the risk is inherent in that online connection
Mm.
because the private keys are generated, stored, or at least accessed on a device that's connected to the internet.
They're more vulnerable.
They're more vulnerable to online threats, things like malware or viruses on your computer or phone, phishing scams trying to trick you into revealing your seed phrase, or even potential exploits in the wallet software itself. The internet connection is the potential attack surface.
Got it. Convenient, good for frequent use, but more exposed. Now let's flip to cold wallets.
Right. Cold wallets or cold storage are all about keeping your private keys completely offline, isolated from the internet.
Okay. And what do these typically look like? How do you achieve that offline state?
The most common type you'll see are hardware wallets. These are dedicated physical devices.
Like those little USB stick things.
Exactly, like the ones from Ledger or Trezor. Or they might look like a credit card, like Tangem or the Material Bitcoin card mentioned in the sources.
Okay. Are there other forms?
Yeah, you also have paper wallets, which is literally just printing your public and private keys onto a piece of paper. And then the term deep cord storage usually just means taking extra security measures with your offline backup, like keeping the hardware device or the paper in a really secure physical location, like a vault.
And the big advantage here is obviously security.
Absolutely. By keeping those crucial private keys completely offline, cold wallets are almost invulnerable to remote hacking attempts or online malware.
How do they actually work then if they're offline? How do you send crypto?
Good question. You only connect the hardware wallet to your computer or phone when you actually need to authorize a transaction. The critical part to the signing of the transaction with your private key happens securely on the device itself. It's designed so the private key never leaves the device and is never exposed to the internet-connected computer.
Ah, okay. So it signs offline, then sends the signed transaction out.
Precisely. It broadcasts the already signed, secure transaction to the network via the connected computer or phone. This offline signing process is what makes them the top recommendation for storing larger amounts of crypto, especially for long-term holding what people call ODealing.
Makes sense. What's the trade-off then? What are the cons of cold storage?
Well, convenience is the main one. It's obviously less convenient for quick, frequent transactions because you have to physically get the device connected, approve the transaction on the device itself.
Right, more steps involved.
Yeah. And there's the physical risk factor, too. You need to worry about losing the device or getting stolen or damaged by fire or water. So secure backups of your seed phrase become even more critical.
And they cost money, right? Unlike most hot wallets.
Correct. Hardware wallets have an upfront purchase cost. And it's worth noting, as one source did, even some hardware wallets are adding features like Bluetooth or Wi-Fi for easier connection. While convenient, those features could potentially introduce new, albeit maybe small, attack vectors if you're not careful about how you use them.
Okay, so Is it really an either a choice? Hot or cold? Or should you, use both?
Using both is actually a very common and highly recommended strategy. It's not usually either.
How does that work in practice?
Think of it like your everyday finances. You have a wallet or purse you carry around with a small amount of cash, maybe a debit card for daily spending, right? That's like your hot wallet, convenient for small, frequent stuff.
Okay.
And then you have your savings account or maybe valuables stored in a safe at home or safe deposit box. That's like your cold wallet for the larger amounts, your long-term savings that you don't need immediate access to, kept somewhere much more secure.
Right, so hot for spending money, cold for savings. Makes sense.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Small amounts on hot for convenience, large amounts on cold for security.
Okay, so let's say you've decided self-custody is the way to go, and you're probably going to use a mix of hot and cold wallets. How do you actually choose the specific wallets that are right for you? And then what are the absolute non-negotiable security steps you have to take no matter what?
Yeah, choosing the right wallet really boils down to your individual needs and habits. You need to ask yourself a few key questions.
Like what?
First, how often are you realistically going to be moving or trading your crypto? Are you an active trader, making transactions daily or weekly? Or are you planning to buy and hold for years, the HO dealer approach?
And that tells you whether to lean more hot or cold.
Exactly. Active trading suggests needing the convenience of a hot wallet, maybe alongside a cold one for the bulk. Long-term holding points strongly towards prioritizing cold storage security.
What else should you consider?
Compatibility is huge. You absolutely need to check if the wallet actually supports the specific cryptocurrencies you own or plan to buy.
Ah, right. Not all wallets support all coins.
Not at all. Some are Bitcoin only, some support Ethereum and its tokens. Others support thousands of different assets across multiple blockchains. You need to match the wallet to your portfolio.
Budget is obviously a factor too.
Yep. Free software hot wallets versus the, $50 to $200 or more for a hardware wallet. And finally, look at the features. Do you need things like built-in staking or lending options? NFT support? Does it need to connect easily with specific Web3 applications you use? Or maybe support for faster payment layers like the Bitcoin Lightning Network?
Okay, so you weigh all that up, pick your wallet or wallets. Now, what about the fundamental security practices, the things you just have to do?
Right. This is where your personal responsibility really kicks in. Because with self-custody, you are the security. First off, strong, unique passwords. Everywhere.
Not just for the wallet itself.
Not just for the wallet app login, if it has one, but also for any associated exchange accounts you use, and critically, for the email account linked to everything. Your email is often the recovery point for so many services if it gets hacked.
It's a disaster. Use a password manager.
Absolutely. Use a reputable password manager to generate and store strong, unique passwords for every single account. Don't reuse passwords. That's Security 101.
And two-factor authentication, 2FA.
Essential. Non-negotiable. Enable 2FA on every single service that supports it, exchanges, email, everything.
Is app-based better than SMS?
Generally, yes. App-based 2FA, using apps like Google Authenticator or Authy, is considered more secure than receiving codes via SMS text message, which could be vulnerable to SIM swapping attacks. Use app-based whenever possible. It's a vital extra layer of security.
What about software updates? My phone and computer are always nagging me about updates. Are they important for wallets?
Critically important. Don't ignore those update notifications for your wallet apps or your hardware wallet firmware. Developers release updates constantly, not just for new features, but often to fix bugs and, crucially, to patch security vulnerabilities that have been discovered.
So running old software is risky.
It's a major risk. Hackers actively look for and exploit known vulnerabilities in outdated software. Keep everything updated.
And the security of the device itself, my phone or my computer.
Absolutely fundamental. Your wallet security is only as strong as the security of the device you use to access it or store the keys on.
So, lock screens, PINs.
Yes. Protect your phone and computer with strong PINs or biometric locks. Keep the operating system itself updated. Use reputable antivirus and anti-malware software, especially on computers.
Okay.
Because if your device gets compromised by malware, that malware could potentially steal your hot wallet keys or log your passwords or seed phrase as you type them. And be super careful about using public Wi-Fi for any crypto activity. It's generally a bad idea.
I've also seen a lot of warnings about fake wallets and phishing scams. How do you avoid falling for those? They can look really convincing.
You have to cultivate a healthy sense of paranoia here. Always download wallet applications only from official, trusted sources. That means the official Apple App Store or Google Play Store, or directly from the wallet provider's official website.
Double check the URL.
Triple check that URL. Scammers create incredibly realistic fake websites that look identical to the real thing, designed purely to trick you into downloading malicious software or entering your seed phrase or private keys.
And avoid clicking links.
Never click on suspicious links in emails, direct messages on social media, or random pop-ups claiming you need to update your wallet or verify your account. Go directly to the official source yourself. Assume any unsolicited request for your keys or credentials is a scam.
Okay. What about my public address? We said earlier you share that to receive crypto. Is it risky to share it too widely?
It's necessary to share it to receive funds, yes. But you should be mindful of where and with whom you share it, especially if that address could somehow be linked back to your real-world identity.
Why?
Posting your main address publicly on forums or social media could potentially make you a target for scammers or even just unwanted attention. Some people prefer to maintain privacy and not publicly advertise that they hold crypto. So just be selective about where you post it.
Right. It feels like security is all about layers, like peeling an onion. And at the absolute heart of that onion, the most critical layer is the seed phrase. Let's really dive deep into protecting that, because it sounds like the single biggest point of failure if you mess it up.
It really is. You nailed it. The seed phrase is the key to the entire kingdom. Protecting it properly is paramount. Everything else builds on that foundation.
And we established earlier the absolute cardinal sin is storing it digitally. Can you just hammer that home again? Why is that so bad?
Yes, it absolutely bears repeating because people still do it. You should never, ever store your seed phrase digitally on any device or service that is connected to the internet.
So that means
no taking a screenshot of it on your phone, no saving a photo of it in your camera roll or cloud storage, no typing it into a text file, a note app, or a spreadsheet, no storing it in cloud services like Google Drive, Dropbox, iCloud Sync, definitely no emailing it to yourself. And critically, no storing it in a standard online password manager that syncs across devices.
Why not a password manager? They're supposed to be secure.
They are secure for passwords, but the risk profile for a seed phrase is different. If that password manager account itself or the device it's syncing to ever gets compromised by a sophisticated attacker, your seed phrase is right there, exposed. And that means all your crypto is gone. It bypasses all other security.
Okay. So it absolutely must be kept offline, physically offline. What's the standard recommendation for how to do that?
The standard baseline recommendation is physical backups. When your wallet first generates that 12 or 24-word phrase during setup, you need to be in a secure, private location and immediately write it down carefully onto paper.
Make sure it's clear, legible, correct order.
Exactly. Double-check the spelling, make sure the words are in the exact sequence given. Accuracy is vital.
But paper isn't very durable, right? Fire, water?
That's the weakness of paper, which is why many people look into more durable physical backup methods. See a lot of products now, metal plates, steel capsules, things like that, designed specifically for engraving or stamping your seed phrase onto them.
And the idea is they survive disasters better.
Precisely. Metal backups are far more resistant to environmental damage like fire and water compared to just a piece of paper. They offer much greater physical durability for long-term storage.
Although, I remember you mentioned the Reddit discussion raised a small point about X-rays.
Yeah, as an interesting edge case, somebody brought up the theoretical possibility of something like an airport X-ray potentially compromising the visibility or security of certain types of metal backups. It adds maybe a tiny layer of uncertainty, makes you think about all angles, but the main threats they clearly protect against fire, flood, simple physical decay are very real and much more common concerns than X-rays.
So durable is definitely better than paper, but maybe not a 100% foolproof magic bullet in every conceivable scenario.
Okay, so you've got your phrase written down, maybe etched in metal. Where do you actually store these physical backups?
This is just as crucial. Redundancy and geographical separation are the key principles here.
Meaning, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Exactly. Don't keep all your physical backups, whether paper or metal, in the exact same physical location. Yeah. If that single location suffers a disaster like a fire, a flood, or even just a burglary, you could lose all your backups simultaneously.
So multiple copies in different places.
Yes. Store copies in multiple, secure, geographically separate physical locations. Think about options like a high-quality fireproof safe at home, maybe a safe deposit box at a bank.
Okay.
Or potentially entrusting a copy to a very, very trusted family member or friend.
But storing it with someone else, that brings up that trust issue again, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. You are placing immense trust in that person, not just their honesty, but also their own security practices and longevity. The Reddit discussion actually touched on this, mentioning more complex solutions some people explore, like splitting the seed phrase into multiple parts stored with different people, though that introduces its own risk if any single part gets lost.
Right. Or things like Shamir secret sharing sounded complicated.
Very. Shamir secret sharing is an advanced cryptographic technique where you split the key into multiple shards, and you only need a certain number of those shards, say 3 out of 5, to reconstruct the original key. It distributes trust and risk. But yeah, it's definitely complex to set up and manage correctly. It highlights the fundamental challenges around physical security, trust, and single points of failure.
And what about planning for the future, the inheritance question? What if something happens to you?
This is critically important and something people often neglect until it's too late. You need a plan for how your next of kin can access your crypto if you become incapacitated or pass away.
It's not like they can just call the bank.
Exactly. There's no institution to help them. You need to leave clear, understandable instructions. This might involve detailed documentation stored securely, perhaps referenced in your will or estate plan, explaining where the seed phrase backups are located and any necessary steps to access the funds. And you have to consider if the people inheriting will even have the technical know-how to follow those instructions.
Wow, yeah. Lots to think about there. Okay, now let's layer on another level of security complexity that the sources mentioned, particularly relevant for hardware wallets. The passphrase, sometimes called the BIP39 passphrase. What is that exactly?
Right. This is an optional but powerful feature available on many hardware wallets, like Ledger devices, for example. It's an additional custom word or phrase. It could be a single word, a sentence, anything that you create and choose yourself.
So it's not part of the 12 or 24 words the wallet gives me.
Correct. It's entirely separate. You essentially add this custom passphrase on top of your standard 12 or 24-word seed phrase when accessing or setting up a wallet.
Okay. What does adding this extra word or phrase actually do?
Here's the clever part. When you combine your standard seed phrase with a specific passphrase, the wallet uses that combination to derive a completely separate, unique set of private keys and corresponding public addresses.
So it creates, like, a hidden wallet.
Exactly. It's essentially a hidden wallet, or potentially an infinite number of hidden wallets if you use different passphrases. This hidden wallet is totally distinct from the standard wallet addresses that are derived from just the seed phrase alone.
Okay, wait, so to access the funds in this special hidden wallet?
You need both the correct original 12 or 24-word seed phrase, A and D, the exact correct custom passphrase you created. One without the other is useless for accessing that specific hidden wallet.
So let's say the worst happens. Someone finds my metal plate with the 24 words etched on it.
Yep.
If I've been using a passphrase for my main funds, they can't get to that crypto.
Precisely. If they input just the 24 words into a wallet, they will only see and be able to access the funds stored in the standard wallet addresses associated with those 24 words alone. Any funds you've strategically moved into the wallet protected by your secret passphrase remain completely hidden and inaccessible to them.
Because they don't have that second piece of the puzzle.
Exactly. They're missing the passphrase key.
That's a really powerful security layer. Offers plausible deniability too, maybe. But I remember seeing some debate, even in the sources, about where you should store this passphrase. Some people were suggesting storing it digitally. Doesn't that fly in the face of the never store keys digitally rule?
It does seem counterintuitive at first glance.
Yeah.
And it's definitely a point of discussion. The argument, as presented by some in a Reddit thread, for instance, goes like this. Because the passphrase by itself is completely useless without the main 1224-word seed phrase, which you're keeping securely offline.
Oh, okay.
Storing just the passphrase digitally, maybe in a very secure, heavily encrypted password manager or an encrypted file, kept separate from any mention of crypto, is argued by some to be relatively safe.
Safer than storing the main seed phrase digitally anyway.
That's the logic. A hacker might somehow compromise your password manager and find the passphrase, but they still can't access your hidden funds unless they also separately manage to find your physical, offline seed phrase backup. It acts as a second factor that needs to be compromised independently. The moderator in that thread seemed to agree it adds significant security if your main seed phrase backup ever gets physically found or compromised.
It definitely adds complexity, though. What's the big risk with using a passphrase?
The biggest risk is simply forgetting or losing the passphrase you created. It's often case-sensitive, And it needs to be entered exactly right every single time you want to access that hidden wallet. If you lose the passphrase, you lose access to the funds in that specific passphrase protected wallet forever, even if you still have your main 1224-word seed phrase.
Ouch. So you absolutely must have a secure way to back up the passphrase itself, too.
Absolutely. And keep it separate from your main seed phrase backup.
So a practical strategy might be use the standard wallet derived from just the seed phrase for maybe smaller amounts, everyday transactions, almost like a decoy.
Yeah, that's a common approach people discuss. Create a sort of honeypot wallet with a small balance using just the seed phrase. An attacker finding the seed phrase might take that and think they've got everything.
While the bulk of your funds are safely tucked away in the passphrase protected hidden wallet they don't even know exists.
Exactly. It adds that extra layer of obfuscation and security for your main holdings.
And one last point on security from the Reddit community, they emphasized diversifying risk, even within cold storage itself. What do they mean by that?
Yeah, that was a good point about the technology still being relatively new. The idea is that just like you don't want all your money in one stock, maybe you shouldn't rely 100% on one single brand or type of hardware wallet, especially for very large amounts.
Why not?
Because there could potentially be an unforeseen vulnerability discovered later that's specific to that particular device model, or the company's software implementation, or even the company itself. So diversifying your cold storage, maybe using a ledger and a Trezor, and maybe even something different like a Tangent card, spreads that risk.
So diversify hot-cold, but also consider diversifying your cold storage methods or brands.
It adds another layer of resilience against a single point of failure affecting your entire stash. Especially for significant holdings, it's considered prudent risk management in this evolving space.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground on the what and why and how to secure wallets as gateways, keys are king, self-custody benefits, hot versus cold, deep dive on seed phrase and passphrase security. Now, let's shift to the practicalities. Actually using these wallets, how do you move crypto between them? And what's the deal with those transaction costs, the gas fees?
Right, moving crypto is fundamental. You'll definitely need to do it transferring from an exchange where you bought it to your own secure wallet. Maybe moving between your own hot and cold wallets, consolidating funds, or sending to someone else.
What's the basic process look like? Let's say I want to move Bitcoin from an exchange to my new hardware wallet.
Okay, first, and this is the most critical step, you need the receiving public address from your hardware wallet.
The public key we talked about earlier.
Exactly. Your hardware wallet software will show you this address. It's crucial to get this 100% correct. Many wallets offer a QR code for the address scanning that is much safer than trying to manually type that long string of characters.
Okay, so I get the receiving address, maybe scan the QR code. Then what?
Then you go to your sending location, in this case, the exchange account. You find your Bitcoin balance, select the option to withdraw or send. It will ask for the destination address. That's where you paste the address you just got from your hardware wallet. Or maybe upload the QR code image if they support that.
Then enter the amount.
Yep, enter the amount of Bitcoin you want to send. Then you'll need to review and confirm the transaction details very carefully. The exchange will likely require you to use your 2FA code at this stage to authorize the withdrawal.
And once I hit confirm, I just wait.
Pretty much. The exchange broadcasts the transaction to the Bitcoin network. Then you wait for the network participants, the miners, in Bitcoin's case, to pick it up, validate it, and include it in a block on the blockchain.
How long does that take?
It varies a lot depending on the specific blockchain and how busy the network is at that moment. For Bitcoin, confirmations typically take anywhere from 10 minutes to an hour, or sometimes longer if the network is congested or the fee paid was low. Ethereum can be faster, other chains faster still. You'll usually get a transaction ID or TX ID,
right,
which you can use to track the status of your transaction on a public block explorer website for that specific blockchain.
Okay. Now, you said getting the address right is critical. What's the absolute non-negotiable warning everyone needs to hear about sending crypto?
Double check, triple check, quadruple check that receiving address before you hit send. Seriously.
Why? What happens if I mess it up? Send it to the wrong address.
If you send crypto to the wrong address, it's gone. Permanently.
Gone. Like no way to get it back.
No way. Crypto transactions, by their nature on the blockchain, are irreversible. Once confirmed, they cannot be undone or recalled. There's no bank you can call, no customer service department, no undo button. Sending to an incorrect address or an address on the wrong network even means those funds are lost forever.
Oh.
This is the harsh reality and the responsibility that comes with being your own bank. Utmost care is required. If you're sending a significant amount or using a new wallet or network for the first time, always, always send a small test amount first.
Good tip. Send like $1's worth, make sure it arrives okay, then send the rest.
Exactly. It costs a tiny bit more in fees, but it's cheap insurance against a catastrophic mistake with the main amount.
Speaking of fees, there's almost always a cost to sending, right? These things called gas fees.
Yeah, exactly. Pretty much every action you take on most blockchains that changes the state, sending crypto, swapping tokens, interacting with a smart contract, minting an NFT requires paying a transaction fee. These are often called gas fees, especially on Ethereum and similar networks.
Who do I pay these fees to, and why?
You pay these fees to the network participants who are doing the work to process and secure your transaction, the miners or validators, depending on the blockchain's consensus mechanism. The fees serve two main purposes. They compensate the validators for their computational work in securing the network, and they act as a mechanism to prevent spam transactions from overwhelming the network.
Okay, but why do the fees vary so much? Sometimes sending ETH costs a few dollars, other times I hear it can be like $50 or more.
Several factors drive fee variation. The biggest one is network congestion.
Like traffic jams.
Exactly like traffic jams.
That one.
Blockchains have limited capacity for how many transactions they can process in a given time period in each block. When demand to use the network is high, lots of people trying to send transactions, trade NFTs, use DeFi apps. Users effectively start bidding against each other by offering higher fees to get their transactions included in the next block sooner.
So high demand equals high fees.
Precisely. The underlying technology and capacity of the blockchain itself also play a role. Ethereum, for example, has historically had lower transaction throughput compared to some newer chains like Solana, which can lead to higher fees on Ethereum during peak demand periods.
Does the type of transaction matter too? Is sending crypto cheaper than, say, doing something complex in DeFi?
Absolutely. The complexity of the transaction determines how much computational work or gas is required by the network validators. A simple peer-to-peer transfer of crypto, like sending Bitcoin or Ether, is relatively straightforward and consumes a predictable, lower amount of gas.
Okay.
But interacting with a complex smart contract, maybe performing a multi-step swap on a decentralized exchange or minting an NFT, requires significantly more computational effort from the network. Therefore, it consumes more gas units, and the total fee you pay, which is gas units consumed gas price per unit, will be higher.
Right. I remember seeing something like sending standard ETH is always 21,000 gas units.
Correct. But a complex DeFi interaction could easily consume hundreds of thousands or even millions of gas units.
And I've also heard terms like gas limit and priority fee, especially related to Ethereum. What are those about?
Yes, on networks like Ethereum, users often have some control over the fees. You typically set a gas limit, which is the maximum number of gas units you're willing to let your transaction consume. Setting this too low for a complex transaction could cause it to fail, though you usually only lose a small base fee in that case.
Okay.
And then there's the gas price, or often now a base fee, plus an optional priority fee, or tip. The priority fee is essentially an extra amount you offer directly to the validator to incentivize them to include your transaction ahead of others who offered a lower tip. This is how you bid for faster confirmation during busy times.
So you can pay more to potentially get processed faster. And the difference in average fees between totally different blockchains can be massive.
Oh, absolutely dramatic. Ethereum mainnet, while improved since its upgrades, can still see average fees climb significantly during peak NFT mints or market volatility. But Layer 2 scaling solutions built on top of Ethereum like Polygon, Arbitrum, Optimism bundle transactions together and process them much more cheaply, often for fractions of a cent.
And other separate blockchains.
Other independent blockchains like Solana, Avalanche, BNB Smart Chain, and many others are also known for having significantly lower average transaction costs compared to Ethereum mainnet due to different design choices and capacities.
Okay. So if you want to try and minimize fees, the tips would be check network congestion levels before sending. There are websites for this. Maybe transact during off-peak hours if possible.
Yep, that can help, like avoiding rush hour.
Consider using Layer 2 solutions if you're dealing with Ethereum-based assets and your wallet destination supports them.
Definitely a huge cost saver for many Ethereum users.
Adjust the gas settings carefully in your wallet if it allows, maybe using fee tracker recommendations.
Yes, but be careful not to set the limit too low, or the transaction might fail.
And if the specific crypto asset you're using exists on multiple blockchains, maybe consider using a cheaper chain if your wallet and the recipient support it.
Exactly. Being mindful of these fee dynamics can save you a surprising amount of money over time, especially if you're making transactions regularly.
Okay, wow. We have really gone deep today. We started by just clarifying that fundamental point. Crypto wallets are gateways, not containers. They hold your keys, which unlock your assets on the blockchain.
Right. And those keys, the private key and especially the seed phrase, are absolutely critical. They are your proof of ownership, your access.
We explored why self-custody, holding those keys yourself, is so important compared to leaving funds on exchanges because of those risks like hacks, insolvency, and regulatory issues.
Then we broke down the two main types: convenient, online hot wallets versus secure, offline cold wallets, and how using both is often the best strategy.
We really dived into how to choose the right wallet for you, and maybe more importantly, the absolutely essential security habits everyone needs: strong, unique passwords, 2FA, software updates, device security, and being hyper-vigilant about phishing and fake apps.
And we spent a good chunk of time on the absolute core of security: protecting that seed phrase, keeping it offline, using durable backups, thinking about redundancy and location. Plus, that advanced concept of the BIP39 passphrase for an extra layer of hidden security and its own storage considerations.
Yeah, and not forgetting the practicalities, how to actually transfer crypto, the vital importance of double-checking those addresses because transactions are irreversible.
And finally, getting our heads around how those sometimes annoying gas fees work, why they vary, and how you can potentially manage them across different networks and transaction types.
It feels like understanding all these concepts really shifts your perspective. It moves you from just being someone who bought some crypto to someone who actually owns and can secure their digital assets. You're equipped now.
You have the knowledge to actually be your own bank in this new financial system, if you choose to be. That knowledge is the real power.
Absolutely. And that, perhaps, brings us to our final thought for you to mull over as you navigate this world of self-custody. If being your own bank means you gain this freedom from traditional institutions, from their controls or permissions, what new, maybe even uncomfortable responsibilities does that freedom automatically place squarely on your shoulders? Responsibilities you might not have fully considered before.
Think about it. The absolute total burden of security now rests entirely on you. There's no bank to refund you if you make a mistake or get hacked because you messed up.
Right.
Think about the crucial need for meticulous inheritance planning, without a bank acting as that intermediary for your loved ones, and internalizing the unforgiving, irreversible nature of every single transaction you authorize. What does the responsibility of truly being your own bank require you to do differently, to think about differently from this point forward?